You awaken slowly, the air heavy with cool mist, and the sound of waves gently brushing the rocky Aksumite coast hums in the distance. A fog lies like a cotton veil over the Red Sea, and just beyond the haze, sails flap lazily, waiting for the wind to remember its direction. You are standing on the ancient docks of Adulis, the kingdom of Aksum's prized port. It's early morning, and a caravan has just arrived from the interior. Donkeys snort and shift restlessly. They carry precious cargo, linen-wrapped bundles tied carefully with braided leather cords. The smell in the air is warm and earthy, with something else beneath it, the faint sweetness of resin. The scent, you recognize it. Frankincense, freshly harvested and still sticky to the touch. Behind you, fishermen in simple cotton wraps sip sour milk and roast strips of fish over small fires. A merchant hums a tune as he checks a manifest etched into a palm leaf scroll. A child is trying to count the crates lined up on the dock, but keeps losing track. Around 12. You chuckle softly. The sun, just beginning to rise, glows like melted honey through the mist. It paints the sails of a Greek merchant ship in gold. They've come for ivory, grain, and especially the fragrant treasures Aksum is famous for: myrrh, frankincense, and occasionally something even rarer, the deep, musky essence of civet, extracted with great care from secret sources far inland. Aksum sits at the crossroads of the ancient world, between Africa, Arabia, and the vast ocean that links all things east. Traders from as far as Egypt, Rome, India, and Persia mingle here. They barter not only goods, but languages, beliefs, and dreams of distant lands. And here in Adulis, on this quiet morning, it begins as it always does, with a whisper of scent. You're invited to follow one of these caravans. A lean man with a woven turban and eyes that have measured 100 sunrises gives you a slight nod. His name is Tesfaye, and he's a spice guide, part merchant, part philosopher. You climb atop a flat basket lashed to the back of a camel. Just behind a pile of carefully packed resin, the caravan leaves the coast, moving slowly inland. The sea disappears behind you, and the air turns drier, rockier. The hum of insects replaces the call of gulls. Tesfaye tells you about the different grades of frankincense. The white pearls are for kings, he says, holding up a glistening lump between his fingers. The yellow ones, those are for priests, and the dark ones, well, sometimes they go to sorcerers. The camels grunt. You sway with each step, lulled by the rhythm of hooves. The scent of the cargo intensifies in the warming sun. It's not overpowering, but it weaves through the air like a memory. Calming and slow, you pass groves of tall, spindly trees clinging to rocky hillsides. Tesfaye points. Boswellia, he says, the frankincense tree. The bark is scarred in narrow slits where harvesters have gently cut to collect the sap. You can't rush a tree, Tesfaye murmurs. It bives when it is ready. By midday, the caravan reaches a small way station, a circle of stone huts where travelers can rest. A fire is already going, and someone has brewed tea flavored with wild herbs. You sip it slowly, the cup warm against your hands. It's faintly bitter, with a smoky aftertaste. In the background, traders compare prices in Easy, Greek, and a smattering of Sanskrit. Someone laughs. Someone else snores under a tree. In the distance, a hawk circles lazily above the cliffs. Tesfaye unrolls a map drawn not on parchment, but on leather. It's marked not with roads but with scents. Symbols for pepper, cinnamon, and cloves show where his journeys have taken him. There are legends in the creases. He tells you about the kingdom's highlands, where oxen plow terraces and priests chant in stone churches. He speaks of perfumers who know 100 ways to blend oils using mortar and pestle, and of jars sealed with beeswax and stamped with royal symbols. Night falls gently, as if the sky is wrapping the caravan in soft wool. Stars appear one by one, shy at first, then boldly. You lie beneath them, the scent of myrrh lingering in your nostrils, the sound of low camel grants and distant crickets forming a quiet lullaby. The earth beneath you is warm from the day's sun. You drift towards sleep, and just before you do, Tesfaye leans over and says, almost in a whisper, in the morning, I'll show you how to tell real perfume from Elias blend. He smiles. But only if you promise not to hurry, you nod. The scent of frankincense curls into the night air, like a dream slipping free of the day. And so the story continues. The sun rises with the kind of lazy warmth that makes time stretch like soft dough. The faint shimmer of heat has begun to rise from the red earth as the caravan slowly rouses itself. You stir beneath a blanket woven from goat wool. The scent of dust and spice clinging to the fabric. Tesfaye is already awake, squatting beside a small fire where water boils gently in a clay pot. He tosses in a pinch of something, bark, maybe a dry leaf. The air fills with an earthy, citrusy aroma. Good for the throat, he says, pouring the brew into a wooden bowl and handing it to you. We'll be breathing incense dust all day today. You'll learn the subtle language of scent. The currency of this ancient kingdom doesn't just shine, it wafts, blows, and lingers. Frankincense, Tesfaye explains, is not simply harvested and sold. It is judged, curated, whispered over. To the untrained eye, all resins look like rough, waxy stones, but to the perfumer or the priest, one nugget may carry the aroma of divinity, while another is better suited for warding off mosquitoes. You walk together along a hillside where frankincense trees grow, twisting things, with flaky bark and small pale green leaves. They look like they've been drawn by a child's uncertain hand, old limbs and lopsided curves. Tesfaye kneels beside one and points to a wound in the bark. From it oozes a pale, milky resin that is hardened into a glossy tear. This one's good, he murmurs. Harvested last moon. Still fresh. He shows you how harvesters use a special curved tool, made of iron, but shaped like a bird's beak, to gently cut the bark. The first cut doesn't yield much, he says. The tree needs time to weep. After a week, they come back together where the tree is offered. Each resin drop has a story. If it's clear and pale yellow, that usually means the tree was healthy, the weather mild, and the soil rich. If the drop is amber and slightly dusty, it might have endured a storm. Or perhaps the harvesters came too early. You smell one that's nearly white and it sends a clean, pine-like tingle through your nose. Another, golden and sticky, smells deeper, like old paper and orange peels left in the sun. Now, Tesfaye says, leading you back to the resting camels. Let me show you how we grade them. He pulls out a small wooden tray and empties a handful of resins onto it. He spreads them gently, using his pinky finger to push each one into place. They glitter like jewels. The highest grade is called tefa, he explains. It's prized for its clarity and purity. That's the kind that ends up in palaces and temples, in the company of gold cups and embroidered robes. The lower grades still smell good, but they might be darker, lumpier, or mixed with bark. No shame in that, he adds. Some of the best healing comes from the dirt. You help him sort the resins as the rest of the caravan prepares to move. A young boy passes by, chewing a stick and grinning. He carries a goatskin sack filled with powdered myrrh. His mother has painted white dots on his cheeks, a protection charm. Tesfaye says, as the caravan begins to move again. Tesfaye shares another lesson. The smell test. Real frankincense, he says, always leaves a faint coolness in the nostrils, like breathing through linen soaked in lemon. If it smells sweet but cloying, it might have been treated with oil or sugar water. Cheap tricks to fool foreign buyers. You practice by sniffing different samples he hands you along the journey. Some are light and cheerful, others heavy and mysterious. A few smell like the kind of dream you forget upon waking. You pass a group of travelers coming from the opposite direction, Yemeni merchants. By the look of their robes, they exchange words with Tesfaye in a mix of Arabic and Ge'ezi. A bit of news, a joke about donkeys, a quick trade of 2 flasks for a patch of powder. You catch a whiff as one flask is opened. It smells like crushed violets and earth after rain. Tesfaye grins. Lavender from the hills of Al Jof, he says. Rare. Won't last a week. Later in the day, you rest at a plateau overlooking a wide, flat basin. In the distance, a line of mountains rises like the spines of sleeping beasts. Below, you see faint lines crisscrossing the land, old caravan roads, like spiderwebs etched into the dust. Here, Tesfaye unrolls a parcel wrapped in dyed linen. Inside is a compact little box filled with different types of incense. Each has its own texture, crystalline, powdery, waxy, and its own purpose. Some are burned for trade rituals, others for funerals. One, a soft green clump, is reserved only for newborns. He lights a bit of a green incense and lets it smolder on a flat piece of stone. The smoke rises in lazy spirals, sweet and grassy, with just a hint of clove. You feel it wrap around your senses like a lullaby, and now the sun begins to set again. Long shadows stretch across the plain. The scent of the day clings to you, not unpleasant, not sharp. It's like memory made physical, like a library of smells stored in the folds of your tunic. That night, Tesfaye tells stories around a tiny fire. One is about a prince who tried to impress a queen by building a mountainette of scented wood. Another is about a trader who claimed to sell moon resin until a curious cat proved him wrong. The flames flicker, the night deepens, the desert stars blink. Not hurried, not bright, just patiently waiting. You drift to sleep with a handful of frankincense beside your pillow, the scent calming and strange, like the breath of trees long dead but still dreaming. Tomorrow, you'll learn about the taxes on incense and how Aksum's rulers turned fragrance into power. But not yet. For now, you sleep. The morning arrives gently, like the lifting of a heavy curtain. A faint breeze carries the coolness of night into the rising warmth of day. As you wake beneath the pale linen sky of your tent, the first sound you hear is not a camel's grumble or Tesfaye's footsteps. It's a trumpet, not a musical one. No, this trumpet comes from something larger, something heavier. Aksumite elephants. You emerge and see them, two great gray beasts being led by handlers draped in faded green tunics, their feet padded in leather wrappings. The elephants move slowly but deliberately, heads swaying, eyes patient. One carries a bundle of dried resin lashed to its back, along with a carved wooden box that looks far too delicate to survive the trip. Tesfaye follows the animals with a calm familiarity. They used to carry generals. He explains, pouring you tea. Now they carry taxes. You blink. Taxes? Tesfaye grins. Let me show you something. He leads you to the edge of the caravan camp, where a small wooden desk has been set up beneath a tamarind tree. A scribe sits there, surrounded by ledgers, scrolls, and little stacks of weighted stones. Traders approach him in a trickle, offering bundles of goods. The scribe inspects, sniffs, and sometimes pinches off a portion, placing it in a small clay bowl marked with charcoal numbers. Customs station. Tesfaye explains, even out here, the kingdom of Aksum, it turns out, was no stranger to bureaucracy. Though their courts and temples were adorned in incense and gold, their roads were paved with paperwork, or at least the stone-carved equivalent. Traders entering or leaving a region paid their dues in kind. Frankincense, myrrh, saffron, or civet, ivory teeth from hippos, hand-woven linens, and sometimes, as Tesfaye tells it, a particularly well-trained parrot. The elephants helped carry these taxed goods to royal outposts or into cities like Aksum itself. They were not the plodding beasts of war anymore. In this golden age of perfume trade, they were mobile safes, lumbering gently through thorny forests and narrow ridges with the dignity of old diplomats. You walk with Tesfaye behind the elephants for a time. Their scent, earthy, dusty, and warm, mingles with a faint perfume rising from the resin they carry. The road winds up a hill and opens onto a view of the highlands. Small villages dot the green hillsides, smoke curling up from cooking fires. Tesfaye points to one cluster of round homes with thatched roofs. That's where the resin council meets, he says. Well, met. Long ago, he tells you about the resin's office, a formal institution where scribes, noses, and collectors debated the value of each year's harvest. If the season had been wet, the resins were thicker, stickier, sometimes cloudy. If it had been dry, they might yield better incense but less volume. There were regulations, too, limits on how much could be exported, rules about which grades could be sold in the royal court. It was said that once a year, the high priest of Aksum would bless the best batch with water from the Tekis River and burn it in a sacred ceremony. The smoke would drift out from the city and be seen for miles. Some thought it was just tradition. Others believed the smoke guided spirits, or at least tax collectors. Back in the camp, you visit a shaded tent where a merchant unrolls a painted scroll. On it is a stylized image of an elephant walking between two trees. Underneath is a script in ancient Ge'ezi, and Tesfaye translates, "Where the elephant walks, gold follows." That was the old saying, he says, meaning, wherever the kingdom taxed, it prospered. Even perfume, sweet as it was, carried weight. You begin to understand how powerful Aksum had become, not just because of what it had, but because of how it managed it. Incense wasn't merely burned in temples, it was bartered, tracked, and taxed across empires. Traders wanted it, kings hoarded it, and the Aksumites kept careful notes. The afternoon passes with slow routine. Camels are watered, resins sorted, and ledgers written in ink made from crushed berries. You lie in the shade and listen as Tesfaye tells the story of the time a Persian merchant tried to smuggle unmarked resin past a checkpoint by hiding it inside dried fish. It worked, he says, until the fish began to smell. Later, an older woman, gray-haired and barefoot, with sharp eyes, approaches the tent with a carved gourd. She opens it, revealing thick, honey-colored resin. She gestures for you to smell. It's sharper than the others, with notes of pepper and pine. Tesfaye nods in approval. Her family pays in kind. No coin, just resin. You wonder aloud how the scribe knows how much is owed. Tesfaye shrugs. He counts. He weighs. He listens to the smell. He points to a bowl nearby, filled with water. The scribe has dropped 3 nuggets of resin into it. 2 float. 1 sinks. The scribe raises an eyebrow and writes something down. That one was mixed, Tesfaye says softly. Probably had tree bark blended in. As the sun dips low, the caravan prepares again for travel. The elephants groan and stomp. The merchants whistle to each other in a mixture of tongues, and the scent of the resin they carry hangs in the air like soft fog. Before sleeping, Tesfaye gives you a small pouch of resin. This, he says, was taxed twice and blessed once. Good for dreams. You hold the pouch close and inhale. The scent is rich and quiet, like memory soaked in wood smoke. And as you lie down, eyes half closed beneath a sky pulsing with stars, you wonder what it would be like to live in a kingdom that smelled of gold and tree sap. A kingdom where elephants collected taxes, where perfume was power, and where even sleep came scented, soft, and slow. Dawn arrives not with a horn or a plumber, but with a gentle hush, like someone laying a cool cloth over your brow. The sun stretches slowly across the horizon, and the sky turns a sleepy, powdered blue. Tesfaye is already sipping warm goat's milk from a wooden bowl, gazing eastward toward the sea. Today, he tells you, the caravan will take a pause at a ridge above the coastal plain, where old sailors once came to pray before setting off. The high ground offers a view, if the air is clear, of where the Red Sea meets the sky, and where ships once bobbed and creaked beneath the Aksumite flag. He leads you there slowly, your feet crunching over dry leaves and crushed myrrh flakes. You reach a circle of weathered stones. Some say these were once shrines to maritime gods. Others claim they were markers, aligned with the stars, used by ancient navigators. Tesfaye says that probably both. A breeze from the water brings a briny, comforting smell, mixed faintly with wood smoke and something darker, perhaps tar or aged teak. He pulls out a small figurine from his pouch. It's shaped like a boat, carved from olive wood, with a tiny mast and no sail. An offering, he says, to honor the safe passage of scent. He sets it in the center of the stone ring and lights a small chip of frankincense. Smoke curls around the boat like waves. Gentle and silver, you sit together in silence for a while, letting the breeze carry the story forward. Aksum, he begins, was a kingdom of 2 trades, one overland, the other across the sea. And though the camel was steady, it was the ship that brought the kingdoms, sent into the dreams of empires far beyond. The Aksumites built sturdy ships, long and sleek, with high wooden prows and hulls painted in warm ochres and whites. They braved the Red Sea's capricious moods and followed currents south toward the Horn of Africa or eastward to the ports of Arabia and beyond. But here's the curious part, Tesfaye says. his voice low and amused. No one ever quite told the truth about where cinnamon came from. You blink. Cinnamon, yes, cinnamon, one of the most prized spices in the ancient world. Sweet, woody, and warming, perfect for incense, perfumes, or preservation. The kingdoms of the Mediterranean wanted it desperately. They wrote of it in scrolls and counted it in offerings. And yet, for centuries, they had no idea where it truly grew. It does not grow in Aksum, Tesfaye admits. It grows in India, or Ceylon, or the islands beyond. He waves his hand vaguely, as if pointing somewhere behind the clouds. But we let them believe otherwise. He smiles and tells you the story. Aksumite sailors, along with Arab merchants and Indian partners, would trade for cinnamon at eastern ports, sometimes directly, sometimes through intermediaries. Once they had the bark packed tightly in woven baskets, they'd carry it west, back to Adulis, to Aksum, to Egypt, and Rome. But when the Romans asked where this sweet bark came from, the traders shrugged and spun tales. It grows in secret valleys guarded by serpents. One story claimed birds collected from mountain caves. Another insisted, still others swore it came from sacred trees planted by gods, accessible only during lunar eclipses. And the Roman scribes, not knowing better, wrote it all down. You imagine a Roman noble reading one of these scrolls by lamplight, completely convinced that somewhere in the Aksumite highlands, birds wrestled strips of cinnamon bark from dragon-infested cliffs. The lie wasn't cruel, it was artful. It protected trade secrets, added mystique, and most importantly, justified a higher price. Tesfaye pats his pouch. A little mystery makes the scent stronger. You descend from the rich later in the day, passing the remains of an old warehouse. The stones are barely visible beneath creeping vines and goat paths. But Tesfaye stops and lifts a flat stone to reveal a patch of scorched earth. Ship caught fire here, he says. Long ago, cinnamon cargo. Took days for the smell to fade. The scent, he says, was so thick, people from neighboring villages came just to breathe it in. They said it made babies sleep and old men laugh. Shipwrecks were not uncommon. You learn. The Red Sea was fickle, and even seasoned captains faced sudden squalls or reefs lying just beneath the water's calm surface. When a ship carrying incense or perfume ran aground, locals would sometimes rush to collect the soaked goods before they spoiled. Smelled like a festival. Tesfaye says. He tells you of a legend. One shipwrecked sailor survived by clinging to a barrel of clove oil. He drifted for 2 days, and when he washed ashore, he smelled so good that the village mistook him for a spirit. They built him a hut and asked him to bless their babies. You both laugh quietly as the caravan returns to its slow pace through the hills. You catch glimpses of the sea now and then, glittering like hammered silver in the distance. Every so often, you pass travelers with glass bottles tied round their waists, samples of oil and scent, meant to impress buyers. Some bottles are marked with runes, others are sealed with cloth soaked in beeswax. Tesfaye lets you smell one, a syrupy perfume that smells like old wine, pepper, and smoke. Cinnamon blend, he says. Expensive, probably fake. As the sky dims into velvet blue, you help gather kindling for the evening fire. The scent of cinnamon clings to your fingers from a broken stick and a bundle. It smells like warmth, like old stories, like something passed down through trade winds and tall tales. Tesfaye places a few pieces of resin on the fire, and the smoke rises gently. It dances upward, carrying the scent of truth, and perhaps a little lie. You settle in, your blanket warm against your shoulders, your head heavy, somewhere, far beyond the ridges and coasts and shipwrecked dreams. The cinnamon trees grow in secret, but for now, you sleep. The sun rises behind a veil of golden haze, painting the sky with soft brush strokes of apricot and pearl. The morning begins with the shuffling of hooves and the clink of bells, small and tinny, tied loosely around the necks of camels. One of the camels gives a long, guttural sigh, shifting its padded feet on the gravel path. Its burden is carefully arranged, baskets of dried herbs, linen-wrapped bundles of resin, and a tall jar sealed with clay and wax. From a distance, it could be mistaken for pottery, but up close, the smell gives it away. Civet musk, Rare and strong, Tesfaye watches as the caravan slowly regathers. He chews a piece of dried fig and offers you one. It's sweet, with a hint of bitterness at the end. Breakfast of the road, he says. Today's leg of the journey is slower, climbing gently through a patchwork of valleys. The caravan follows narrow paths that snake between terraced farms and small groves. At every step, the camels move like ships on gentle tide, rising and falling. Their steps sure but unhurried. Each camel bears not just weight but value. Tesfaye explains. In Aksum, perfume was treasure, but unlike gold or gems, it breathed, it evaporated, it demanded care. Resin could spoil in the wrong humidity, civet could go sour if exposed to sunlight. Even the cloth used to wrap scent bundles had to be chosen carefully, woven loose enough to let the resin breathe, but tight enough to keep dust out. Tesfaye pulls back a corner of one camel's bundle to check. Inside, the contents shimmer faintly, tiny golden lumps pressed into the folds of fabric like sugar cubes. This, he says, is temple grade, burned only during the festival of smoke. You pass a man sitting beside the road, fanning himself with a branch. He greets Tesfaye with a wide grin and speaks in a dialect you can't follow. Tesfaye laughs, replies, and hands him a small cloth bundle. The man inhales it deeply, nods solemnly, then hands back a little carved token made of shell, a scent barter. Tesfaye says after he raises bees, wants resin to smoke the hives. The exchange reminds you that scent, in Aksum, was more than commerce. It was currency, language, even diplomacy. Some traders carried no coins, just vials of perfume or bundles of herbs. An apology could be scented, so could a warning. Later, you pause beneath a wide acacia tree. The camels rest, chewing slowly, their eyelids heavy. Tesfaye opens a small jar and dips a reed stick inside. He lifts it to your nose. The scent is unlike anything you've known. Sharp, musky, almost animal, but not unpleasant. It's deep, earthy. It feels old, civet, he says. The king's perfumers mix just a drop into incense soil, makes the whole blend linger. He tells you how civet was collected. Not hunted, not billed, but carefully gathered from the scent glands of civet cats, a process delicate and ritualized. The gatherers were skilled and few. The cats were revered, protected even. No cat could be harmed. To do so was said to spoil the batch, to curse the scent with bitterness. You imagine a narrow hut filled with sunlight and silence, where a civet cat paces calmly, and a keeper waits patiently with a carved spoon and a bowl lined with jasmine leaves. Back on the trail, Tesfaye pulls out a wooden tally stick. Notches carved into its sides track how much of each resin has been traded, how much remains, and what blends are still needed before reaching the next hub. Each stop on the route is planned, not just by distance, but by scent. This village wants light resins. That one prefers oil with clove. Another trait only thirsts saffron in the blend. The caravan is not just moving through space. You realize it's composing a perfume as it goes. A few hours later, you reach a high plateau with a view of fields below, golden with late millet. In the distance, smoke curls from a compound of low stone walls. Tesfaye calls it the scent house. It's not a temple, nor a market. It's a quiet outpost where traveling merchants can blend perfumes in peace. They trade formulas, dilute oils, and share methods for curing resins. No weapons are allowed inside, only scent. Inside the scent house, you meet a woman named Ayala. Her hands are stained with clove oil, and she wears bracelets woven from strips of dried orange peel. She grinds resin with a flat stone and gently folds it into a base of melted beeswax. She offers you a small lump for sleep. She says, "All memory, you smell it. It's warm and deep, with hints of smoke, ginger, and dried roses." It's a story in wax. Tesfaye tells you that in some villages, perfume makers were seen as part doctor, part oracle. A good blend could ease fever, another could help remember a lost name. Scent, after all, goes straight to memory. Outside, the camels are rising again, slowly, reluctantly. You feel the rhythm of the day softening. The heat is past its peak, and the light now casts long shadows across the dusty path. As you walk, Tesfaye hums an old song, a trader's tune. Wordless and slow, one camel sneezes, another groans. You notice the air has changed. You can no longer smell the civet or the clove oils so clearly. The breeze has shifted. The path dips into eucalyptus groves now, fresh and clean before the day ends. Tesfaye pauses and reaches into his pack. He pulls out a soft cloth, unties a knot, and reveals a tiny carved box. Inside is a pinch of something green and dusty, old blend. He says, "From my teacher, send at the coast, the market, and the hills all in one." He lets you breathe it in. It smells like honeyed lemons, like wood smoke, like something long forgotten. It smells like travel, like patience, like stories told under moonlight. And when you finally settle to sleep under the pale arms of a crescent moon, your dreams are thick and slow and warm with the weight of camels, the breath of resins, and the memory of perfume carried not just on backs, but in hearts.